Hello boyos, Rich Boy J here back in with another video. This is going to be yet another update on my journey to collect every single LEGO Star Wars minifigure ever created. Now, this is probably going to be one of the biggest updates I've had so far in terms of just new figures that I bought specifically for this series. No, I did not go digging into my sealed box collection. That will be reserved for a later date, but I did actually purchase 9 new figures from Bricklink in order to make this video. So I'm pretty excited to show you guys what I picked up. Let's first start off with a couple of classic boys. Right here, we got the old school Gungan Warrior minifigure along with the Paplu minifigure. It's basically that old Ewok style where they would literally just print the entire headpiece as one mold and not bother giving it any more detail. So I was pretty excited to get both of these figures, mainly because they're very reminiscent of the LEGO Star Wars video games for me. And specifically that Gungan Warrior, I distinctly remember playing as that guy in the LEGO Star Wars games. But it's just very nice that LEGO has really made so many improvements to this guy. I mean, the mold pretty much is the same, and even same thing with the Gungan head. But the fact that they're adding, so much more printing and detail to these figures really is an amazing thing. I actually distinctly remember when I first got back into LEGO Star Wars, one of the first figures I got was Jar Jar because I was working on that pod race mock and I knew I needed like the new updated Jar Jar, and having that thing in my hand, I was just blown away by like the printing on the ear specifically. Like, just there was so much great and fine detail in there, and like that's what really showed me like, holy crap, LEGO has stepped their game up. So this guy over here comes in, I believe, the 2002 Ewok attack set, and this guy over here comes from the 2000 Gungan Patrol set. So I actually have like 3 of the Kadu that come in that set. It'll be nice to finally have a Gungan Warrior to add to those Kadu, and I'm happy to put these guys on my wall. Next up, we got a couple of Wookiee boys, and I was pretty excited to get these. I think that it's nice to have Wookiees in your collection that aren't Chewbacca, so I believe this guy came from that Wookiee gunship set, and this guy would have come from the original Millennium Falcon, but there's actually an issue with him that I'll get into a little bit later. But let's just look at like the big difference between these two figures. It's nice to have these two right front and center. Now, obviously, they're not meant to represent the exact same person, but it does give you a good idea just how far LEGO has gotten in terms of like the mold for Wookiees as well as the general print details. Like, I don't know, the face on that Rebels Wookiee just looks so much better than Chewbacca. For one, he actually has eyes and teeth. And those extra tan details on top of the brown, I think, make a pretty big difference. So definitely can see here that LEGO has made vast improvements in terms of the quality of minifigures. But to talk about this guy over here, so this is what would have been the Chewbacca that came in that original Millennium Falcon set. However, there's actually a pretty big problem with it. If you guys don't know, LEGO has had basically 2 shades of their basic brown color throughout the history of LEGO, and the original one was brown, like brown as you'd expect, and the newer brown they would describe as reddish brown, so it has more of a red tint to it. And the seller actually sent me basically legs that were the classic brown, but then the like headpiece as well as the torso is in the new reddish brown, which was not what I was looking for. I did get this resolved. The seller actually refunded me the price of the figure, which I appreciate. The annoying thing is that, if I do want to get this figure by itself, I'm going to have to pay the price of the figure plus shipping. So, even if a seller does refund you for sending you the wrong thing, it still basically forces you to spend more money out of pocket in the future by having to pay shipping twice. So that's always a bit annoying, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I just really would have liked to have had that classic Chewbacca figure. So for now, this thing's pretty useless to me. It's not going to go on the wall, but this Wookiee is. Next up, we have a couple of clone boyos as well as an Umbaran boyo in the middle. So the one over to the far left is the ARF Trooper from that, I believe, 2011 Clone Trooper Battle Pack. It came with a couple of like Bomb Squad guys. This is just the Clone Pilot Phase 1. I believe it's been in a few sets, but I was really surprised that I didn't have a single one of these, so I'm glad I finally have that in my collection. And then finally, we got the Umbaran Soldier in the middle. So obviously, you guys know how I feel about the Clone Wars figures in general. I really actually appreciate the mold of that ARF Trooper helmet. I think it actually looks fantastic. And now I got to get that Elite ARF Trooper to complement this guy right here. But the thing that always gets me is when I take off the helmet and I see that monstrosity. I'm I don't know. It's just let's just put that helmet back on him. But all in all, I'm pretty happy to have all these figures. It's always nice to get these cool, unique clones. If there's one good thing that the Clone Wars brought us, it's that LEGO did a decent enough job, at least with the Phase 1 clones, of giving us a good collection of various unique clones that we see throughout the series. So I'm certainly appreciative of that. And finally, we have ourselves one second generation burnt boy, as well as a nice Jedi alien. It's always nice to get alien Jedi. So on the left up here, we got the burnt, scarred Anakin Skywalker, the second generation of that type of figure. And I remember seeing this. I wasn't super into Lego, but I came across this figure and I was just like, man, that looks nasty. Just the fact that they did his like burnt flesh is just, I don't know, if coming from where I came from initially, where the burnt Anakin figure just basically had a few like blood streaks on his face, and now you can literally see his melted flesh on his torso. I just thought it looked sick. And I mean, it's a cool figure to have, definitely. It's just, man, look at that face. Ugh. He is just in such pain. I feel so sorry for him. This is a figure that truly needs to be put out of its misery. So I'm glad to have that. He came in, I think, the 2010 Emperor Palpatine shuttle, which was a pretty cool set. I like it. And I could really see LEGO doing a remake of that general set. Maybe throw in a couple of shock troopers as well. I think that'd actually be really cool. So there you go, LEGO. There's an idea for you. On the right side, we got Eth Koth. He is one of the Jedi that we see in Episode 2 in the Clone Wars, and he is replaced by a similar looking Jedi by the name of Agent Kolar. Which is actually a beautiful figure. I love that Agent Kolar figure. This one I would say is right up there, outside of the fact that he has those terrible Clone Wars eyes. But other than that, I actually really do like this figure. I think that head mold is just amazing. And I mean, if you just want to maybe swap that out with another face, you could probably find something that's along the same lines of that same color, and just use him as a generic alien. So it's always nice to get various aliens in Star Wars, and I think this is probably one of the better looking Clone Wars figures since it was done. I'd say probably a little bit closer to the end of the run of those style of figures. So yeah, I really like both of these figures. So let's go ahead and look at what we got to put on the wall this week. Alright, so unfortunately this week, outside of the new figures that I bought, I don't really have much else to add to the wall other than this Tarful figure. And I'll actually point out he is slightly different from the original one. So you can see, here's the one from, I think, like 2014. And this is our new Tarful right here. If you look at them without looking very closely, you'll probably think they look exactly the same. But if you actually look at their chest plate, if you like look at the chest plate on the old one and then look at the new one in comparison, you can see that the new one, it's the printing is just a little bit more fine. Let me see if I can get a better view of that. It's kind of hard to tell, but like if you look there, you can see the line is just a little bit thinner as opposed to this one over here. The line is not nearly as fine. I hope that comes across well on the camera. If not, maybe I can pull up like a comparison picture to show you guys exactly why these two are slightly different. But nonetheless, that means that we got to add a new Tarful to the mix. So even when LEGO's not making many like updates to the figures, they're still making updates to them. So let's go ahead, jump to the time lapse, and get these figures on the wall. All right, so we got our figures placed and we are good to go with the minifig wall for this week. I realized while placing the figures this week that I actually have a few pretty big decisions to make, and I'll get into a few of those in a little bit. But one thing you'll notice if we scan across maybe some of the figures on here is I did a lot of poaching recently whenever I had to put together the sig figs and just various figures to go in my Vardos mock. Those have not been replaced on this wall yet. They're still really just sitting in there on the counter next to Vardos. So I'm gonna have to make an effort to get all those figures rebuilt so I can put them back into this mock. But yeah, so that's certainly something I'm gonna have to take care of. But really, the bigger thing I want to have to think about with this wall is just how I plan on having enough space for most of the figures that I'm using. So just looking at it now, you can see that when it comes to the figures that were recently released, I'm basically on the very bottom row that I allotted for myself on this wall, which means that I'm probably not even going to have enough space on this wall to make it through the rest of this year, which is very discouraging. Whenever I actually put this together, I think I basically left enough space for 200 more figures. So I thought in my head, you know, that should keep me set for a few years at least of mini. So I thought in my head, you know, that should keep me set for at least a few years of minifigures being put out. And Lego has really just ramped up the production of new minifigures. Like, it's really kind of getting out of control. But I mean, I love minifigures, so there's no huge problem with it other than me trying to, you know, put these things on my freaking wall. But what that means for me is I'm gonna have to figure out how to make more space for it. And there's a few things I know I can do. I really didn't want to have this wall constructed in such a way that like the top row or the top few rows were not accessible to me just by standing up. So like I obviously have more space up there that I could utilize if I absolutely had to, just expanding, you know, various base plates up there. That's not something I would love to have to do because, you know, for one, I can reach the top row on this, but then also like, I don't know, it's just easier to see when it's not up too high. But, you know, with the current rate that Lego is pumping out these minifigures, that may be something that I have to look into. The other obvious option is expanding the minifigure wall onto another wall. I have quite a bit of wall space next to this. I really don't want to have to do that either, just because I like the idea of having it all in one place. My goal, whenever I finally, you know, get all the old figures and catch up with the new figures, is to take a photo of all these minifigures together in one place, and I wouldn't want for that to have to be multiple photos. I know that's like kind of a lame excuse to not do it, but for me, I really would just like to keep these figures all in one place for the most part. So that's something that I'll have to look into as well. But let's actually take a little closer look at the wall. So I'm glad that I kind of stuck with my goal with trying to fill in a lot of these big gaps near the top. And I think really since like the first episode I did of this, it's looking a lot more full, especially compared to the bottom. The bottom is just very full, whereas obviously there's more gaps moving towards the top. But I purchased 9 new figures, and most of them were in the top half of this wall. So I'm proud of myself for doing that. And that's probably going to be my goal moving forward, just really filling in a lot of those slots near the top, because I'd like for it to look, if not 100% complete, at least mostly balanced without it being so bottom heavy. So that's what I'm going to try to do. If you look, I got that Pat Blue figure placed right there. Moving along, I also got the Gungan Warrior placed up there on the top next to that flesh tone Dak Router minifigure. One of the annoying things that I realized is I totally screwed up on the wall and pretty early on, so this is something I'm really gonna have to fix. Basically, there should be space for like 4 figures between these two. I guess when putting the wall together, since I didn't have those figures, I just placed Ahsoka right next to the nearest figure that I did have, which meant that like there's a significant gap right there, and of course it's towards the top, so most of these figures are going to have to be shifted. And really, I've kind of held off on shifting the figures because I know I'm buying a lot right now, and I really want to wait until I have purchased a significant amount of figures before I shift the entire wall, just because I really don't want to have to shift it multiple times more than I have to. So until then, I'm just kind of sending the figures in like that. There's probably going to be like a few figures stuffed in there because there's so many people that need to be right there. But yeah, I done goofed. Over here, we got my man Eth Koth. He's chilling next to that Clone Wars Quinlan Voss figure, and then basically the two Wolfpack boys would go right next to them. So I really would like to get those figures sooner rather than later. They're just like pretty expensive, you know. They only came in that one Republic frigate set, so all those guys were at least $10 figures. So hopefully I can start adding some of those guys to my collection. And then the newest figure I added to the wall is, of course, the Wookiee soldier right here. And he's just chilling there. Like I said, I like having more generic Wookiees in my collection, so that'll work out pretty well. And yeah, you can see that all the figures, or most of them, were in the top half, and really just try to fill in a lot of those blanks towards the top. So each couple of weeks, making a step closer and closer to collecting all the figures. And I hope you guys are enjoying the series. The feedback seems to be pretty good. I think you guys really like the idea of being able to see like almost all the Lego Star Wars figures all in one place. So it's fun for me as well, and I'm glad I'm taking this a little bit more seriously now and sticking to a schedule. And it also, you know, just helps provide content for the channel, so that's always a good thing as well. But that's really all I got for you guys this week. In the next couple of weeks, I want to do probably another decent sized order of figures, hopefully somewhere in the like 5 to 10 range. We'll see how that goes. But man, I'm just happier and happier with this wall. So if you like what I had to do, guys, go ahead and support the video by hitting the like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.